right. I am the daughter of two revolutions. A political one. This is the Islamic Revolution of 1979. I was born in the immediate aftermath. It was a people's movement that turned into a people's nightmare. And for the last 40 years, the clergy of Iran have taken the country hostage, and they've been repressing and depressing everyone who remained. I'm also the daughter of the internet revolution, working in big tech for almost 2 decades. Another revolution that didn't actually go entirely to plan. I'm just actually going to take stock for a second. So I've been in New York 12 years, consider myself a New Yorker. I want to just take stock of the type of New Yorkers that we have in the room. So just by show of hands, how many people here have eaten at the Halal Guy's food truck? That's so wonderful to see. This is, all right, true group of New Yorkers. How many people here have heard of the halal internet? Okay, no one? That is the North Star vision that the government of the Islamic Republic of Iran have for their internet, which is basically the clergy get to decide what stays up and what's removed. Anything that's immoral goes, anything that's pro-Western or liberal. So with my background, I think it's always been really intuitive for me to think about geopolitics through the lens of technology and vice versa. And that's why in 2010, when I was already working at Google, we decided that it would make sense to have a unit that is thinking about the weaponization of the internet and how to get ahead of it. So we started Jigsaw, a place for political scientists and computer scientists to come together and try to solve problems of security online, terrorism, cyber attacks, repressive censorship. All right, I think it's important to take stock of the fact that we are 5 days away from the most important sporting event or marketing event in America, the Super Bowl Sunday, a time where 30 seconds on TV can cost you up to $7 million. And I want us to think about the types of ad campaigns and marketing campaigns that have really resonated with you over the last few decades. So I asked the internet what some of these campaigns were, and here are 3. So Old Spice, the man your man could smell like, Dove's Real Beauty campaign, and Budweiser. Okay, so I want you to put your hand up and show me with your fingers which one of these that you think is the most effective at really reaching people. Okay, which of these 3 campaigns? So 1 is Old Spice, 2 is Dove, and 3 is Budweiser. I don't know if the 2s or the 3s have it. Only a couple of 1s. All right. Well, I want to actually put to you that it is not 1, 2, or 3 here. That actually the most effective campaign, at least that I've ever seen, of really motivating behavior change and attitude change did not come from a corporation or an ad agency, but from a terrorist group that goes by the name of the Islamic State. So a few years into Jigsaw, this phenomenon happened online, and ISIS was really taking the internet by storm. So they had music videos, they had news outlets, they had magazines online that were going viral, and they were really tuning into what their audience wanted and tailoring their message just for them. And we wanted to kind of understand this phenomenon better. We looked at the marketing material that they had online. So they had obviously in English and Arabic, in Russian, Kurdish, German, Mandarin, Chinese, Hebrew. But we saw an ISIS-produced video in sign language. Just think about that for a second. ISIS was taking the time to ensure that their message was reaching the deaf and hard of hearing. It's like no wonder that they were so effective at recruiting. Tens of thousands of people left their home to become foreign fighters and take up arms in allegiance with ISIS. So we read up on the topic. We spoke to professors who knew about violent Islamism, went to conferences. But the thing that we knew we needed in order to figure out what you might do to intervene with ISIS's radicalization online, the key would be a different type of expertise, the special expertise that comes from lived experience. We wanted to speak to people who had gone through the radicalization process and then defected. So we went all the way to Iraq, sat down, me and like some other people from Jigsaw, we sat down with people young men who trained as suicide bombers, night watchmen, soldiers, people who had since risked their lives to defect. And there was one guy in particular who really moved me. So he was an 18-year-old guy, really fragile looking, trembling. He was wearing some old Adidas sweatpants and flip-flops. And he described to me being recruited online, how it worked on social media. He said when he arrived in the so-called caliphate, he had his mobile phone and his passport immediately confiscated, so the symbols of his digital and physical freedom. He described the violence, queuing for hours and hours just to get bread, the loneliness. He wanted to go and he got homesick, so he asked if he could go and visit his family for a week, and he was beaten up. I thought, what could have changed this outcome for this very remorseful jihadi sitting in front of me? And I asked him a very straightforward question. I said, if you knew everything that you know now, the day that you left home to go and join ISIS, would you still have gone? And he said, yes. And I was like, damn. He said, at that point, I was so brainwashed, I wasn't taking in any contradictory information. I couldn't have been swayed. Then I said, well, what if you knew everything you know now 6 months before the day that you left to go and join ISIS? What about then? And he said, at that point, I probably wouldn't have. So there was this research phase that preceded the conviction phase, and I wanted to know what he was researching. Well, he said, basically, ISIS was selling the Muslim utopia. So his questions were about religion, community, ideology, and he was looking online for answers. Online, that's an opportunity to reach him. As we studied more, we realized that there are lots of answers to these questions from really credible messengers that just weren't reaching people like this defector. So citizen journalists who are actually capturing footage from the caliphate and exposing ISIS's promises as a myth. Moderate clerics who had different interpretations of not just Islam, but even jihad that didn't agree with what ISIS was selling. And defector testimonies, stories from people just like the man that I was sitting in front of. So we recognize, though, that these messages aren't being heard by these people, and that there was an opportunity for us to try to change that. So in 2016, we partnered with a group called Moonshot CVE to launch a new approach to tackling online radicalization called the redirect method. This is how it works. It uses the power of targeted ads, so people searching for extremist material say, how do I join ISIS? And they'd see a targeted ad that invites them to watch a video featuring these messages, these counter-narratives that they wouldn't otherwise have seen. So when we piloted this in 8 weeks in Arabic and English, this campaign reached 300,000 people. It was targeted based on people who were searching for things that showed that they were sympathetic to ISIS. So it wasn't who you were, but what you were asking that would determine whether you saw the campaign. And we drove 500,000 minutes of watch time, which is a lot of watch time for people who are in the research phase of considering signing up to a terrorist group. Obviously, violent extremism is not contained to any one language or region or even ideology. So in the time since then, the redirect method has been used by practitioners across the world to try to protect people from recruitment by violent ideologues online. So technology really does give us the power to meet people in the moment, even or especially if those people are terrorists. But it only matters if we have the human insights to really make it count. Okay, I'm guessing no one here knows a terrorist personally, but I'm guessing that you do all know a conspiracy theorist, and that is before the Taylor Swift, NFL, whatever nefarious plot was exposed. Why did Jigsaw care about conspiracy theories? Well, because of their connection to terrorism. And while I know that all conspiracy theorists are not terrorists, all terrorists are conspiracy theorists. And that's what we wanted to find out. What is it about, which conspiracy theories is it that tend to become violent, and how could we predict that? So we got together recruited 100 conspiracy theorists. Let's go straight to the source. They describe themselves as believers, truthers, theorists, and we wanted to get a breadth of representation, so people who believed in the moon landing hoax, people who believed false flags. Every time there's a school shooting, it's a government plot, undercover to take your guns, and flat earthers. We had a whole host of them. And I was thinking, we want to get coverage from everywhere, so we need one from each conspiracy theory. But when we got them all together and asked them about their beliefs, it turned out that there wasn't a single conspiracy theorist that believed only one conspiracy theory. Why is that? Because there is a common architecture to conspiracism. The hidden agenda, the secret cabal, the cover story, and the proxies and the affiliates. Once you kind of accept this worldview, then you're receptive to any number of new conspiracy theories. What else did we learn? We learned that conspiracy theories actually play a really important role. They're a sense-making mechanism. We are pattern-seeking creatures, and they help us make sense of what we're seeing. If you look throughout time, conspiracism has gone up during times of natural disasters, economic depressions, chaos. I really love this quote: "Conspiracy theorists are the last true believers in an ordered universe." Has anyone here ever heard of a conspiracy theory called the Great Replacement Theory? Okay, it's about half of us. It's the conspiracy theory that white societies are getting browner because of a secret cabal of Jews who are trying to dilute the white race so that they can take over. That's why the white supremacists who were marching at Charlottesville were actually were chanting, the Jews will not replace us, because of that conspiracy theory. It's been mentioned in every lone shooter manifesto by a violent white supremacist as a motivating belief. So definitely in the category of dangerous. At Jigsaw, we've interviewed dozens of former violent white supremacists. So the ones that wear chinos and have crew cuts, the ones that wear DMs and have swastika tattoos. Despite their outward appearance, something struck us in learning about their radicalization process. They all had a common element in the recruitment, in the propaganda that they were served and they believed as part of becoming radicalized. And that was race realism. Race realism, or scientific racism. As a scientific racism pitch goes something like this: Asian people are better than white people at math, and then it takes you somewhere pretty degrading and dehumanizing about black and brown people really fast. That was on all of their on-ramps to buying into their violent white supremacist group. Repetition. Repetition allows prediction. We thought to ourselves, if we could predict it, then maybe we could pre-bunk it. Now, show of hands, anyone here ever heard of the term pre-bunking? Okay, debunking? Okay, so pre-bunking is the more assertive cousin to debunking. Precede the bunk, getting ahead of disinformation before it has a chance to take hold. But how can you get ahead of a claim before it's been made? Because at the level of narratives and tropes, a lot of what we see, whether it comes to health or radicalization or elections, disinformation, it's all repetitive. So we wanted to apply a new approach, at least, to the internet to try to build resilience to that disinformation. That approach is pre-bunking. So there's a three-part formula to pre-bunking. One is you alert people to an impending attempt to manipulate them. Even in our polarized world, there is one thing that unites us, and it is that we do not like to feel like we are being manipulated. The second step is to microdose with the disinformation so that people know what it looks like when they how to spot it. And then the third is to emphatically refute it, to give people the arguments, the counter-arguments, so they can protect themselves when they see the disinformation in the wild. This is actually, as a theory of change, has been around for decades. What we were working on at Jigsaw for the last few years was how do we translate this into something that's effective online? And so we started with an 800-person study, actually against the scientific racism propaganda that we were just talking about. So we brought in young men, white, 18 to 35-year-old. 400 of them, we showed a pre-bunking video that unpacked the rhetorical techniques used in scientific racism. And then the other 400, we didn't show them the pre-bunking video. We showed all 800, actually the white supremacist video, the propaganda after. And then we measured. For each, we measured how likely they were to sympathize, to provide financial support, logistical support, or arms support. And the pre-bunking video, just watching a 3-minute video, led to significant, I suppose, depression of people reporting that they would have any sympathy or provide any support. But we also measured something else. We measured how pissed off people got, psychological reactions, which is super cool. So the people who had seen the pre-bunking video were much more annoyed and angry when they eventually saw the propaganda because they could see it as an attempt to manipulate them, which is how we knew that it was working. Since doing that study, we've been working for the last year and a half to scale pre-bunking across platforms and across contexts and geographies. Immediately after the war in Russia's invasion of Ukraine, we went into surrounding countries, Poland, Czechia, Slovakia, to build a pre-bunking campaign against anti-migrant hate to get ahead of the demonization of Ukrainians fleeing conflict. We reached half of the online population and had a measurable effect on people's ability to spot scapegoating and fear-mongering of migrants. We've since launched campaigns in Germany, Indonesia, India, and we're just preparing for a 27-country campaign ahead of the European parliamentary elections. But as we take stock of the conflicts that are live right now, it is clear that we are experiencing an unprecedented wave of radicalization. Pre-bunking holds promise for building resilience in all of us to scapegoating and fear-mongering, the things that cause to divide and dehumanize. Speaking of fear, how many people here have ever been fearful of being cancelled? No, don't raise your hands, but I'm imagining a lot of hands going up. Okay, if you do fear that, you are not alone. We are not alone. Social sanctioning is the #1 fear of people posting comments online. Polarization, toxicity, these are common associations with the internet. And we kind of figure, maybe silence is safest. Maybe it's better just to leave the posting to others, even if they do often turn out to be the loudest and the least well-informed. A question for you. How many people here read the comments underneath news articles? Oh, some of you are lying. All right, that's very high. I'll admit that I actually thought our collective coping mechanism for the internet is that we don't engage with comments at all. I'll tell you who does engage in comments in addition to everyone here, is Gen Z. So we wanted to understand where the internet is going, and we thought, who better to ask than the people who are going to shape it? So we went to Gen Z and found out that they read the comments. Okay, maybe this will interest you. They often read the comments first. So the sequence is headline, comments, scan, and then and only after that, if at all, do they read the article. So for those of us for whom comment sections are kind of an afterthought, that is not where we are headed at all. Social spaces online are becoming front and center in sense-making. What's more interesting than when the Gen Z read comments, it's why. So they describe to us not this kind of very focused pursuit of finding out whether something's true or false, but something much more social. So they were looking to evaluate the relevance and significance of information based on signals from people who look and think like them. So to me, I was like, that's like, you have alternative facts. This is alternative fact-checking. It's a really important take for us at Jigsaw because we have skin in the game. Oh, this is some information about Gen Z and why they look for signal from one another. This is the tool that Jigsaw launched back in 2017. It is actually the world's most popular free tool for identifying hate and harassment in comment sections. It's used by a whole swath of publishers: New York Times, Wall Street Journal, El País, Le Monde. It's used by Wikipedia, Reddit. It is 2 billion comments a day, 18 languages. That's great. We're finding like the worst of the worst. But over the last year in particular, we've been thinking at Jigsaw, firstly, that it turns out you can't police your way to healthy discourse online. I mean, if you're the CCP in China or you're the mullahs in Iran, sure, you just remove everything that you don't like. But we have a much harder task, actually, in open societies, right? Because we believe that different ideas should come into contact with each other, actually conflict with each other, and that's the only way for the best ones to rise to the top. Even though we've wanted to be able to promote the good as well as demoting or removing the bad for a long time, it's only very recently with these new large language models that we've been able to zero in on the attributes of discourse that are likely to that make it likelier that we can engage with opposing viewpoints without becoming polarized. So as we think about aligning our internet with democratic values, we wanted to not go for conflict elimination, nor conflict resolution, but conflict transformation. We want to transform the conflict that we have online today, because we sure have it, it's just tearing us apart, to something that is productive. These are 3 attributes that we were able to model over the last year. To give you an example, so is a social post kind of specific and well-reasoned? Is it seeking to understand another opinion? And is there a sharing of lived experience? Because there's a lot of research that shows that the more you share your personal experience, the more that evokes empathy. So we did a study which was very encouraging. We organized comments on a climate change article of the New York Times according to how they're organized today, and then we organized them according to these new attributes. And we heard from people that they found this new way of organizing comments much more interesting, much more trustworthy, and much less hostile. So we kind of, for the first time ever, have the human insights and the technology to be able to reorganize social discourse in a way that makes it much likelier that we can promote pluralism, trust, and respect across divides. And we are certainly due a refresh of the internet to bring it into alignment with our values. This idea, by the way, of kind of not just removing the worst, but also bringing out the best is something that I know not just as a technology leader, but I'm aware of as a parent, right? If I go to my 5-year-old and I'm like, stop being bad, I don't get nearly the results as I get when I tell her to show me how she's good. There's a little bit of a pick-me-up at the very end of my presentation. These are my 2 daughters, Zeba and Roxy. I'm aware that they also are daughters of 2 revolutions. We have the conflicts that are becoming more intense year after year for the last 10. There's death, devastation, displacement, and all the division and hate that follows us back home. To 2024, the year of elections, more people than ever will be able to go to the polls and vote, which is unprecedented and magnificent. Also the context for conflict and a flashpoint for violence. And then they're also daughters of the technology revolution, their technology revolution, which is actually a quarter of a century on from the dawn of the internet. We're on the cusp of this new technology paradigm. And we've heard so many really exciting applications of AI today, and I am a profound believer in the potential of AI. Everything that I showed you today works because of AI. But AI is just one piece of the puzzle. We have to account for human needs. Our humanity is deeper and bigger and timeless. And the truth is, when we think about the internet, it's been in stasis even with AI, when it comes to innovation that's consequential for democratic discourse. We lay so much emphasis on intelligence, but intelligence is not what creates conflict, and it certainly isn't what resolves conflict. We have something much more powerful than that, which is connection and compassion and curiosity and even courage. Those are superpowers that we need to put to work too. So I'll just close by saying that I believe that the ultimate revolution for us is not going to be one that is about technology or isn't centered in technology. It is going to be by and for humanity. And that is one that we will all be excited to be part of. Thank you.